Stacey Conroy.
Patrick.
I was doing your name to Wonder Woman. So,
Yeah, well, the skills I'm okay with. The
Mhm.
costume, not so much.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking more the skills, honestly.
Yeah,
Really, I
yeah,
was. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
good. That will prevent me from hitting you with the cane.
You're going to hit me with the cane anyway. So let's just be honest.
Probably, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's just going to happen. So, yeah.
Well, when you've earned it,
Hey, I get it. I understand. So,
yes. Um, but as we get into tonight for OCD and SUD and recovery is possible, one of the things I want to tell you is when I see you at the IOCDF conference in July, I will actually be able to see you. I'm getting a new electronic bioptic that auto focuses and it makes me look like a Borg from Star Trek.
because here, you'd be like Geordie LaForge from Star Trek Next Generation or what?
Not as stylish, but yeah,
Okay.
it goes off of a pair of standard glasses.
Hmm.
And I was able to see the speed limit sign across the street.
That had to be nuts for you.
Oh, it was like mind blowing because I've never had vision,
Yeah,
so this was like a whole new world, and it was fascinating. It's going to take some adjusting, but
no doubt. Yeah.
so but I will actually get to see people, um, and one of the reasons I bring it up here is because that's one of the things that being in recovery gives you is the opportunity to find out things like this that make your life even better. And I think of all the time and energy I spent and money on other things, drinking, popping, snorting, shooting substances. Um, and here I am many years into my recovery. Technology has found this out because this is the first one that's been able to autofocus in less than a second.
Wow.
So I can look at something, like a door sign, and then turn around and look down the hall and see the Starbucks sign or the exit sign. So,
Crazy.
yeah, and it's just one of the things that recovery brings into your life is possibilities that you can't even fathom sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I hope insurance helps with that too.
Well, actually, no,
No. All right. Well,
no.
but
Apparently, vision is not seen as a necessity.
that's unfortunate. But
Yeah.
still, I bet it feels worth it, especially for all the hiking that you love to do. This is going to be a game changer.
Oh, I got to go back to the Grand Canyon and take this with me.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because even with my vision, when I went around like the corner, I was like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
I want to see it more the way you guys see it."
Yeah. Right.
And with
Right.
this, I can.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go through all my theme parks and all of that.
See, now you have a chance to do every theme park all over again because now you're going to be like, well, now I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
mhm.
So, but
Well,
as I
that's
said,
amazing.
it's one of those things that it never would have come to my radar had I not been in recovery. Recovery is a lot more than just not obsessing or not drinking. It's having opportunities and being able to show up for something like this. I spent Saturday morning walking around the eye doctor's office, walking outside, having my mind blown.
Hmm.
And then
Did
I
you
went to ride roller coasters.
did you tear up a little bit? Did you cry?
Actually, yeah. To be honest, it was a little overwhelming.
I bet it was. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
So, hmm.
I'm definitely gonna have to play with it, in trials and such because it just blows the mind.
Hmm.
And I think, this is the first iteration of this. Think of what they could come up with next.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just going to get better, right?
yeah. But, I'm switching. It says, "Can regular people go to the conference and how much and where?" So,
What are regular people? I'm curious
well,
about
that
regular
that's
people.
a good distinction. It's kind of like normal, which
Yeah.
is
Oh,
just
okay.
a setting on a washer machine.
Hmm.
We're looking for healthy.
Yeah.
Um, I have a magnet on my refrigerator that says normal people worry me.
I like that. Hmm. Hmm.
But if by regular people you mean people who do not have OCD, yes. People who treat OCD and don't have it, researchers and family and friends can attend the IOCD conference this year. It's in Orlando, Florida. And there are some options to go. I know that the IOCDF sent out an email looking for volunteers, which, you know, allows you to go at a reduced rate at least. So you would contact the IOCDF if that's something you're interested in doing, in being a volunteer for the conference. I have no idea how many volunteers they need and have no say in it, but I'm just putting it out there for information. Sometimes there are scholarships. You can also inquire about those. Um, and there are different registration rates. So if you're not a professional, don't register at the professional rate because we pay a higher rate because we need continuing education credits and such. So make sure that you're registering at the uh, you know general population rate. I guess I don't know what they call it, but it is 100% worth it. And this is one of those conferences. It's I've never in all my professional career gone to a conference like this.
Right.
It
It's very unique comparatively to anything else. That's for
Oh,
sure.
yeah,
Hmm.
because it has a lot of people who live with OCD. So we bring researchers, treatment providers, individuals with OCD, and the people who love them all together under one roof for, 3.5 days. And there's activities for everybody. So if you're someone with OCD, you can go to talks specifically for how to live with OCD, how to challenge OCD, OCD for college students, OCD for kids, being a parent of someone with OCD, being the spouse of somebody with OCD. And then treatment providers can also go to, lectures on how to treat OCD. So there's a little bit for everybody. And this is the one conference I go to every year. I don't care where it is because they do move it around. This year it's in Orlando. Last year it was San Francisco. They try to make it geographically accessible to people in a rotational basis. Um, but I will go to this one no matter where it is because of the uniqueness of this. I'm going to learn something I didn't know before, not just from a professional, but from a personal level. Plus, I know everybody now. It's like going to see all your friends.
Hmm.
And so,
Exactly. I mean, no one really calls you a friend, but still, we pretend.
no, they call me the queen of recovery, as they should. You're right. My proper
Yeah.
title is Your Highness.
Hmm. Your Highness is
Yeah.
the correct term. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes, yes. Everyone will refer to Stacey as Your Highness at the conference. I would agree. And we'll be speaking at the conference together too. We have a talk, which is very exciting. So
We do.
looking forward to that.
And you will not have control of the slides.
I don't know what you're speaking of, Stacey. What
Yeah. Patrick actually edited the slides in the middle of a presentation we were doing, and I didn't know it because 'cause I'm legally blind. He's correcting the spelling errors that I put because, obviously, I don't suffer from perfectionism, that's not one of my things, and he's correcting the slides during the presentation. Now, I got feedback that said, "I don't think it's very professional, though, for those slides." John thinks we were changing the slides. I told him about the feedback, he's like, I
Hmm.
I might have changed the slides during the presentation. So,
I thought it was pretty funny, but yeah,
well, now it is,
now it is. Yeah. So
so
it's Good thing we're like brother and sister, and we just do this to each other. Yeah.
Constantly.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have a lot of fun if you come to our talk.
You will. Yeah. Hey, Insane Coconut talks about somebody posted a clip that he thought someone was laughing at them. I don't know if insane you are what you go by, so I'll just say them. And people were laughing in the clip as well too. I think that sounds like a wonderful ERP exercise to me personally. I don't know about you, Stacey, but you know, there are times that things like that may get out there, and we're going to have to learn how to live with it.
Yes, and sometimes the best ERP is the ERP that shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we do planned ERP, and sometimes ERP just shows up, and we have an opportunity to practice willingness and acceptance.
Yes. Stacey, has anyone ever laughed at you?
Hello.
Other than present company, has anyone ever laughed at you?
Like, have to look in the mirror. But yes, other people have laughed at me for various reasons. Mm-hmm.
I too have been laughed at. Yes.
Yes.
Um,
I survived.
you did. Right. So, Insane Coconut, you can be overwhelmed by this, or you may look at this as a wonderful, because OCD, you're diagnosed, you say, with OCD and social anxiety. But you may also look at this as just a wonderful opportunity for an ERP experience and to learn that you can handle this very thing. Hollow says, I currently have anxiety. I don't know what to do. Stacey will tell you, do not turn to drugs and alcohol as a way to manage the anxiety. Right, Stacey?
Yeah, no, it works for a brief period of time. You come down, you're anxious, and you're hungover.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So we don't want to do that. What do you do? Keep listening to what we described today. You will hear lots of ideas around what we call exposure and response prevention therapy, where we purposely have you do things that are uncomfortable and learn how to handle them. You don't have to like them. They don't have to be comfortable. You learn how to handle them, and that is the key.
Yeah, and Joe says, "Am I right in saying that I need to stop feeling like I need all my ducks in a row before I allow myself to start beating OCD and allow myself to go back to work, back to socializing, and
basically, and
well,
then there's skip over back to life. I need to get myself back into the flow, if you know what I mean by that. Allow my thoughts and feelings to flow. I do love, Stacey, and I'm glad you brought this one up. And I'm not, I'm going to let you do it, but I just love the fact that this is such a great OCD thing. You can't start OCD therapy until everything's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let you know when I have my ducks in a row.
I don't even know where my ducks are, much less how to put them into a row. Yeah.
No. I'll tell you how my ducks are in a row. I was actually stepping over a laundry pile that I thought was there, but I actually took care of last night. But I'm visually impaired, so I had it in my brain that I had to step over the laundry pile that was in the hallway. I've been stepping over something that wasn't there all day. So, no, you do not need to have your ducks in a row. As a matter of fact, the more you accept that your ducks will not be in a row, the better your treatment with OCD will go.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you do think you have to have your ducks in a row and treatment doesn't go quite the way you want, you'll blame the fact that, well, maybe my ducks really weren't in a row and that's why the treatment didn't work.
Yeah, that's like I have to get in shape to go to the gym.
I love that one. I also love people who wash their dishes before putting them in the dishwasher as well, too. I never understood that one.
Yeah, I did, and then I stopped.
Mm-hmm. And now your dishes still get clean when they come out of the dishwasher.
They do, yes.
Yeah. Or I know people, and I don't have one, but I know people who have housekeepers who clean the house before the housekeeper comes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they pick up before somebody comes to clean, or they vacuum before somebody comes to clean. I'm like, I'm paying somebody to clean the house. I am not doing it for you.
I don't understand it.
No.
It blows my mind.
Yes. I have people who say I hired somebody to clean to motivate me to keep my house cleaner.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, no. It, ducks being in a row is a misconception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Um,
This is a good one, Stacey. Curious about how to just sit with, in quotes. And just so you all know, sit with doesn't mean literally sitting in a chair with something until it passes. Sit with also means being with or living with. So I've tried to even move away from the term sit with because people were taking it too literally and just wanting to sit. I want you to live with discomfort, live with anxiety. And Stacey, in all seriousness, as much as I give you crap, and you give it back to me, you
mhm.
are a great example of someone who lives with a level of discomfort that most of us don't have to live with.
Well, yeah. I mean, uh, I have a buffet, but between the vision and the OCD and the PTSD, it's like my brain can go in lots of directions.
Don't forget the albinism. I mean, throw
Oh yeah,
that
the
back. Mhm.
albinism, the
Mhm.
photosensitivity.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I again, I have a buffet.
Hmm.
Um, you know, so yeah, I sit with. I learned to sit with a lot. But one thing I will say is going through the treatment process, which was a little bit of ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, and ERP. And ERP was the hardest thing I ever did. I never tell people it was easy, but it put the house back together. I often say that CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, got and DBT and other things that people tried to work with me on got me better, but the ERP got me well. And combining that with a little acceptance and commitment therapy in terms of knowing what was important to me, my values, why I was doing the work, was all part of that. And it's a journey. However, when you are able to, I say sit with self, but Patrick's right. It's about living with self. It's about taking things as they come, being willing to accept all of the experiences that come up during the day and being open to them as they come without needing to fix them. You can address them. Some things need to be addressed, but you don't need to compulse about them. You don't need to get on the worry treadmill about them. You don't have to solve everything. You can just let a thought be a thought and let it be with you
Hmm.
and still go about your day. That's the thing. Sitting with something, as you said, doesn't mean sitting. I may be walking around my house and have an intrusive thought pop in my head. And now I'm like, oh, okay, here we go again. And I will keep doing what I'm doing, my laundry, cooking, cleaning, working, because I say, okay, that's a thought. And if it pops up again, I'm like, it's back. And I'll let it do its thing while I continue to do my thing. And if something pops up too often, I will still do ERP around it. I mean, that's the other part of this is I've had things come up that just get stuck. Even though I'm very much consider myself in recovery, I get caught off guard every once in a while, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do some ERP around that, and it sucks. But the time frame for me is so small now because I know how this works. So even when I get to a point where I use ERP on something, it's kind of like, whoop, whereas before it was like, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
um, but that's really what it's about is just, being able to let thoughts come without engaging in a solution or a safety behavior throughout your day. That's recovery in a nutshell. And that's sitting with it.
This one's really directed at you, Stacey. I like it. Happy83 says, I have bad night vision due to retina condition. I can drive during the day, but I can't drive on my own when dark. Someone has to help me. My OCD themes change all the time, but this fact of low vision makes OCD more difficult to deal with. Sometimes I think something bad I caused and then I didn't notice it. Do you ever have that because maybe you didn't see it, that it's harder to deal with because you don't know if you had done it or not?
I'm trying to think about that.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
a fascinating kind of.
No, it is. I could definitely see how OCD would definitely play with
Yeah.
that because you have that level of uncertainty.
Right.
But I was born legally blind, so I had the same vision as my OCD, developed. And as I said in the beginning, I'm just getting a tool that allows me to see. So I don't know that ever crossed, into my head. And now, as you say it, I'm wondering, if my brain's going to go in that direction. Like, ooh, this was a fun idea. Somebody said, let's play with this one. But yeah, no, I could definitely see where if you can't see something, then you could say, well, did I pass it? Did I do this? Do it? Where it could create doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And the other aspect of that is OCD always attacks what's important to us. And if you are having trouble now with your vision, that's going to be something that's important to you, whether it's progressive or if it's not, but it's affecting your night vision. So it will play with that. I have I have a buffet. So I have a GI disorder that I deal with, and my OCD just ran with that. When that came up, and I had all these food contamination obsessions and all these, worries that food was going to make me sick. And so sometimes something that comes up in your real life triggers a whole new path for OCD. So it could very much play in, but you also have to realize that OCD lies. It doesn't matter what it is, contamination, perfectionism, just right. It's OCD is just wrong. It's full of
Right. Because
what?
here's the interesting thing. Your vision could be 20/20 and you'll still doubt your senses.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Gigi says, and this is another one that I think you'll have a fun answer for here, Stacey. Curious about the concept of finding reassurance as a means to look for answers to your compulsions. I knew you'd get a chuckle out of that one, and you just gave it, so thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. No. There is no answer for OCD. OCD doesn't want an answer. It just wants you to look for an answer and seek reassurance and do it again, please, and do it again, and do it again. And on the on the SUD side, there's a saying that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So you keep looking for an answer for OCD. It never accepts an answer, and yet you keep looking for an answer.
And part of the reason it doesn't accept it, if you think about the nickname of OCD, is the doubting disorder. The
Yes.
doubting disorder will doubt whatever you give it, but it will demand an absolute answer. So you can give it an absolute answer, but it will doubt it, and therefore it's not an absolute answer to OCD, so it will demand an absolute answer.
Welcome
Oh,
to the treadmill.
there's a hole in the bucket. Dear Liza, there's a hole in the bucket. Dear Liza, a hole.
Yes, or if you're of a certain age, this is the song that doesn't end. It goes on and on, my friend. Some people started singing it, not knowing what it was, and they continue singing it forever just because this is the. That's OCD in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Can you talk about pure OCD treatment and how it differs from other forms of OCD? Sometimes there's a misnomer on this that there is just obsessions and no compulsions. There are compulsions. They are mental compulsions. And so you treat it the same way that you treat any OCD with exposure and response prevention therapy. And you help people to interrupt the mental compulsions that they are doing to neutralize the obsessions that they are having. What are your thoughts on gene therapy telling you what antidepressants work? So, just so happened to have run the BTTI over the weekend, and Wayne Goodman was there, and he did address this in the talk that he did. And he said it could give you some interesting information. He's not convinced yet that it's the end all be all for telling you what the right med absolutely is, but it can help point you in some directions. So, that coming from the guy who wrote the Y box, he might know a little bit about OCD. So,
Yeah, a little bit.
mm-hmm.
And Peter Brown said, I've been working through ACT with Russ Harris's book, The Happiness Trap. Love that book. I think I'm finally ready to do ERP again, which is great. And, you tried it a couple years ago with NOCD, but you weren't very good at practicing. You know what? Recovery is like a river, okay? We never step in it in the same place twice because it's always our lives are always in motion. So if you weren't ready before, that does not mean that you're not ready now. We're
Absolutely.
in a different place. So
By the way, we will welcome you back with open arms at NoCD to try again. Mm-hmm.
yes.
So, please, please. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, good Lord. I mean, I went to detox 7 times. So if
Yeah,
at first you don't succeed, try again.
right. Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about why talk therapy is bad for OCD? So I'm convinced that my OCD flared up really bad just by deciding to go to talk therapy because it fueled my perfectionism drive and my drive to understand everything. Stacey, I'm going to assume prior to ERP, you've tried some other therapies that might not have been so helpful, but you can tell us your story.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, first of all, I'm of an age, a lot of people didn't know OCD. I am one of those individuals that, it took 17 years or something to get properly diagnosed. And I did a lot of therapy in my life, and it had some effect on like overall stuff, but not on the intrusive thoughts, not on the compulsions, and things interfered with my life that never got better. So people would tell me things like, well, just because I have co-occurring PTSD, so I'd get a lot of, well, just because you experienced violence in your life doesn't mean you're going to be a violent person, which is normal psychoeducational stuff, but it didn't address the fact that I had intrusive thoughts about harming other people, and would literally do things to make sure that I didn't hurt other people, like getting off the bus, sitting on my hands, holding on to things, putting my hands in my pockets, avoiding being social with family and friends, and shutting down. So none of that responded to talk therapy. You could tell me all of the cognitive restructuring techniques and give me all the psychoeducation that you wanted, but not until I did ERP around those things did I really get better. As I said, CBT got me better, but ERP got me well. And a lot of people will go to therapy for a long time before they get with somebody who understands and can treat OCD. And that's one of the great things about NOCD is it has expanded the access that people have to getting proper treatment for OCD. So you don't have to wait 17 years.
Right.
Because it's a game changer. I am also a therapist, so I started working with somebody in their 60s, who had never been properly diagnosed with OCD. But as we went through the symptom list for OCD, she's like, this is me. This is what I have. And she was seeking treatment through one of my colleagues for depression. And he knows me. We've talked about OCD. And he's like, I don't think this is depression. And her battle with OCD had led to her being depressed. But treating depression was not going to stop her OCD. And she's been in this cycle for decades.
And it's easy to see why OCD and depression come together, because if you look at depression, there's one of two definitions you must have for depression. One, I feel depressed, or two, I have a loss of interest or pleasure in things I once enjoyed. Well, what does OCD attack, Stacey?
Everything that's important to you, things that you enjoy.
Oh, so maybe you've lost interest or pleasure in things you've enjoyed because OCD's attacked them, and now you actively attempt to avoid them. Why wouldn't you feel depressed?
Yes.
Voila.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I have sexual orientation, OCD, and get responses down there, the groinal, when I see same sex couples, and it makes me feel mad at myself because I'm in a relationship. It makes me feel like I don't like my boyfriend anymore. Well, why would that make it? Or has your OCD told you that that's what it means? Because nothing makes you do anything. Nothing makes you feel anything, right?
No.
Some people may see an elevator in front of them and think, woohoo, I love elevators. I'm going to press all the buttons. Some people may see an elevator in front of them and go, it's a means to get me to where I want to go. Some people may see an elevator in front of them and think, oh my God, I'm going to die if I get in there. So does the elevator make one person happy, one person feel neutral, and one person scared at the same time? Or is the elevator neutral and it is subject to the perception or interpretation of anybody experiencing it? I would contend the latter.
And I would concur.
So therefore, seeing any kind of couple doesn't make you feel anything. You, through your OCD, interpret it as, oh my gosh, what if I see them and then I find them attractive? That would be bad, because that would mean that I would have to de-identify with the identity that I have, and I would have to be something else, which would mean I've been living a lie this entire time, and now I have to tell my boyfriend that I don't really love him, and I have to tell my family that I'm not really straight or gay or bi or trans or whatever it is, because this goes in all ways, and this is nothing to do actually with a dislike or anything of any kind of sexual orientation or couples or anything. This is a fear of, what if I'm not what I've identified with? And the groinal and everything is just icing on the cake for OCD to get you to be afraid and worried and what if and do compulsions.
Yeah, I've heard a rumor that OCD lies.
Shut your face.
Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
Am I
How
going
dare
wrong?
you?
Mhm.
I, as now the representative of OCD in this court that we are now in, as you have just blasphemed me, would like to sue you for libel, because I, as OCD, have never lied to anyone. I have pointed out possibilities to let them know that they have things they could potentially do to try to make their lives better. How dare you say that I lied to people? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now that is interesting, because as a exercise, and I don't know where I would do this, but it'd be fun to put OCD on trial.
Oh, it'd be a blast, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I did that once with a SUD treatment facility that I worked at. We put
Mhm.
SUD on trial, um, and you know whether it was a moral or a disease. And we had people in the treatment program take sides,
Hmm.
and we had a jury, and we put it on trial.
Hmm. This might be a talk for next year for the OCD Foundation conference.
Yeah, there we go. That one would be a lot of fun.
That would be. I think we're going to do this.
Yes,
Actually, I think we're going to do this.
I think we
Yeah.
just
We just
um,
came up with a talk for next year. All right.
we did
Hmm.
OCD trial.
OCD on trial. Come and hear a mock court case of OCD.
Who is accused of being a compulsive liar.
Hmm. Who is countersuing for libel?
Yeah.
Mhm.
We can come up with a whole okay, this abstract is writing itself.
I think it is. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Um, any particulars you wanted to jump to there at all? Or?
Um, doo, doo, doo. No.
Mort says, I thought I may have had pure O, but hearing you guys speak makes me think my compulsions are avoiding. It could be. Remember, and I just talked broadly about safety behaviors. So there's 5 safety behaviors that I always go over with people: avoidance, reassurance seeking, distraction, substance use, and compulsion. And guess one gets talked about the least? Substance use. Which
Yes.
is why we do this, because we always like to talk about the fact that there needs to be a place to discuss that substances play a role in a safety behavior world in obsessive compulsive disorder. And Stacey has always been amazingly open and honest and brave to tell her story about how substances were used by her as a way to try to run away from the intrusive thoughts and images and urges that she experienced with OCD.
Yes. And I always tell people too, it's not that it doesn't work for a while, because it does, and that's the trap. I got a kick out of it one day. I was sent an article that said, when people smoke marijuana, they have fewer obsessions. I'm like, yeah, when I was doing heroin, I did fewer obsessions. I don't recommend either one of them as a long-term treatment, because they're a temporary solution to what is for many a lifelong problem. So it doesn't fix, it just covers up, it hides. And safety behavior hides, compulsions hide. They take care of it for a minute, but then it comes back, and it usually comes back louder and stronger. And
Mhm.
that's the problem. And seeking treatment for OCD is much more effective. Um, you know, it's
Mhm.
the, but that's the challenge, because what is it? I came to a fork in the road, and I took the path,
Mhm.
less traveled. It's too easy to do the safety behaviors and just
Mhm.
keep engaging in them and putting the Band-Aid on something that's, needs stitches.
Yeah. Right.
you know? And it's usually the harder thing that gets you to where you want to be.
Right.
So when in doubt, choose the harder option,
Mhm.
because that's where recovery lies.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's tough, right? Because doing ERP is the harder thing to do, right? It is. Doing doing compulsions, I don't want to say is the easier thing to do, because there are people who do compulsions and they hate their compulsions. They feel terrible doing their compulsions. But in the moment of doing compulsion, there might even be a millisecond of relief that they get, and therefore they keep doing the compulsion. So that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Hmm. And therefore, people will still do the compulsion.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Over and over and over and over and over again. And the same with any safety behavior. It becomes a compulsion in and of itself, or an obsession and a compulsion. I was very obsessed over obtaining, using, and having and thinking about substances, you know? Um, so here it is, the safety behavior that I thought was getting me away from obsessive compulsive behavior. But there's a lot of similarities in the fact that you spent hours thinking about obtaining drugs, thinking about how you're going to obtaining them, using them, rinse and repeat.
Mm-hmm.
And so, ironically, what you're using to get rid of the obsession is itself a repetitive behavior that keeps you just as trapped.
Yeah.
So,
That'd be a good book, right? My Life Trapped. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, and you know my thing about acronyms.
You love an acronym. Mm-hmm.
I do love an acronym, you know, and one of them I have is FAITH, FAITH. Face an inner truth heals, you know, or facing an inner truth heals. And, you know, that is what this is looking at things and accepting that OCD is not telling you the truth, taking on the challenge of doing ERP or ACT, and then facing that fear, that uncertainty, and being more willing. How HOW, honesty, openness, and willingness. And you know, the acronyms can just help us remember something in a moment. There's a reason we come up with them. Yeah, they're a little campy and corny, but you know, in that moment of stress when you're trying to figure out which direction you want to go, sometimes having these around can be helpful,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And then I have a depressing one. Dead. Drinking ends all dreams.
Well, there's that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, but that's a reality for those who have co-occurring SUD,
Yeah.
you know?
And we've lost friends in our community to this, right?
Yes, we have. Um, Unfortunately, SUD ends for some in death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Night Owl asks, what are my thoughts on the use of SSRIs for OCD? They are the first line treatments for OCD as a medication that's out there right now. The tricyclics are still probably the best drugs, but because they work on multiple neurotransmitters, they have a lot more side effects potentially for people. And so people usually start with the SSRIs or the SNRIs. They're a drug that focuses only on one neurotransmitter instead of multiple neurotransmitters, and they seem to help in good augmenting. But even the American Psychiatric Association says use ERP or ERP plus medication as the way to treat this, not just going to meds alone as a way to do it as well. And just know that you usually have to get a higher dose of these meds for OCD than you typically would for depression.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I have the 30-70 rule. And what I tell people is medications will help about 30%
Okay.
of your symptoms, and ERP and therapy helps 70%. So they help get you started. They might take, you know, things down a little bit, but you're still going to need that treatment, be it ERP or something ACT based. And I keep saying that because I want people to know that, you know, there is another option, but a lot of people use ACT to get you ready for ERP. So a lot of people may start with ACT and go to ERP or do a combination of such,
Right.
both of them.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, medication for most people is just not a long-term solution. in terms of it won't take everything down. They're effective, but they're not as effective as the combination.
Right. And ACT is great, but even our friend Mike Tuig would say ACT
Mhm.
is not a treatment for OCD. It is a great augmentation of wonderful ERP for OCD and can help you
Yes.
get ready and moving and grooving to do good ERP, but you don't end it with ACT. You move into the ERP experience.
Hmm.
Mhm. Happy 83 says, I have nieces who love me, but I'm very careful how I communicate with them because you have pedophilic OCD. It's killing you. I'm scared to hug them, sleep next to them because I'm scared. How do I do ERP? Hug them on purpose? Well, that would be one that I would suggest eventually. Yeah. Now,
Yep.
maybe you not start there, but I would stop avoiding family parties where they are. And if they come up to you, don't put your arm out to force them away. If they want to come up to you and high five you or anything like that, that's fine. If they hug you, you can allow that. You don't have to initiate it because that might feel like, well, why am I initiating that? Did I have nefarious reasons to do so? But if they choose to do it, it's up to them. And you can build up to purposely giving them a hug and being with them as well, too.
Hmm.
Hmm.
ERP in the context of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
It's usually where it works best.
Oh, Stacey, I got one for you. Ruby says, I thought anxiety meds were used for OCD and SSRIs were antidepressants. Do you want to talk a little bit about anxiety meds and the treatment of obsessive compulsive disorder? You might know something about this.
Yeah. Yeah. The problem with anxiety meds is they're addictive. And
Like benzodiazepines.
yeah,
Right.
benzodiazepines, Xanax, and Ativan. As a matter of fact, Klonopin, I had a client who called them felony pills
Hmm.
because every time he took them, he committed a felony.
Oh, Jesus.
Um, and he started out on them for, his anxiety. But they're an addictive substance, and the problem is we don't know who will become addicted to them and who will not.
Right.
We can't give you a blood test and say, oh, well, this would be a safe medication for you, but this won't. And that genetic testing that they can do for antidepressants, it doesn't work for who will become addicted. We find this with opiate medications. We find it with benzodiazepines, even alcohol. There's no way to know who's going to develop, alcoholism or an alcohol use disorder. You find out usually after you have it, unfortunately. So it, there's been a big move away from those anxiety meds and the prescribing of such. Now, some people do take them, they are on them, but they're working very closely with the psychiatrist, and they're just not as first line as they were initially thought to be because they can have a lot of consequences. The other thing is, like any substance that is psychoactive in an addictive way that hits the reward pathways, which benzodiazepines will do, marijuana, alcohol, drugs that are very legal. But as I've said before, legal doesn't mean safe. They interfere with learning that happens when you're doing ERP.
Mhm.
So if you're trying to do ERP while you're on marijuana, alcohol, but anything that's taking the edge off, you're not going to learn as much from the ERP experience. So it's going to prolong it or decrease the effectiveness of treatment. So here you're on a medication so you can maybe get better from OCD, but in fact it's going to make the treatment less effective being on that type of medication.
Yeah. Yeah. And some other people were saying here, oh, well, you use them for panic attacks or things. No, you can use great ERP for panic and social anxiety and phobias and everything as well, too. Benzos are not required for the treatment of those things. We have wonderful exposure based therapies that are available for all anxiety disorder issues. From trauma, we have prolonged exposure, and we can do all sorts of great things for people with exposure based therapies who have anxiety. Mhm.
And it's highly, highly effective. It's
Yeah.
hard as hell, but it's highly, highly effective.
And Happy said, I hear NAC supplements are helpful. You didn't see work for you. Again, Wayne talked about those in the talk this weekend, and he said he hasn't seen anything in any studies that show that it's better than placebo either, so, at this point. So, but some people, some people say it helps. So, but just there is the placebo effect that we have to deal with in all medications, which is sometimes people take a med and they're told what it does and they get better just based on being told what it does without it actually doing anything. So uh, there's always that to deal with too. So any med that's out there has to actually do better in trials than the placebo effect does, because the placebo effect plays a role in every single medication that's out there.
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Oh, let's see if we missed anything.
Well, while you're looking, I'm just going to remind people that, we have a website. It's www dot, because we need to be reminded of the three W's, dot,
dot.
dot OCDSUD.com.
Not comma.
Not comma, dot.
Dot.
Yeah. World Wide Web.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our previous talks are posted there. There's some resources there. There's various books that we're not authors. We don't get any kickbacks, but we recommend them for various things. They're good. They have good, useful information within them.
Someone talked about an hour spent showering. Great ERP for something like that would be setting an alarm and doing 55 minutes of showering for the next 3 showers, and then 50 minutes for the next 3, and then 45 minutes for the next 3, and 40, and just going down gradually. We don't like to throw people in the deep end of the pool and tell them to swim. We want to gradually make some changes in people's lives and do these things. And sometimes people get stuck, right? And so one of the things that I've done, Stacey, you might like this, is I was working with someone and she knew what she wanted to do for the ERP and just was still sometimes going over. And so we made an agreement that if she went over the number of times per day that she was allowed to wash her hands, then she would put a quarter in a jar. And at the end of the week, we would take those quarters and we would count them. And then she would write a check for the number of quarters that were in the jar. And then she would mail that check to the opposite political party's headquarters for which she would be voting for in the next election. Now, let me tell you an interesting fact about this. She spent over a year with all of this turmoil in her life about how this hand washing was affecting her relationship with her children, her husband. It was interfering with her job. Her parents were mad at her. All these things, none of which really changed her, though, and she stayed stuck in it. But sending $1.25 to the opposite political party for which she was voting for angered her so much that she said, screw it, I am not washing my hands more than this number anymore because I will not give them more money. So sometimes we just also have to find the best motivator that we can find to help people make the changes that they want to make. Sometimes that's part of our job.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. So it's always fascinating. I'm always amazed at what it is at times that finally gets somebody to make the change, right?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And kudos for the creativity on that part, because
well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that one's good. I hope to steal it.
You may absolutely steal it. It has been so fun. I've now used it for many people, and it has been a game changer for a lot of people. And one person wrote a check for 25 cents to the opposite political party. But the problem of that too is that once you do that, you're on their mailing list. So now they get these mailers every week, and these mailers are just a reminder constantly to them about, don't wash your hands anymore because you're going to get more mailings if you keep getting sending more money. Yeah. So it's really been effective, actually, as a way. And I'm not saying that this is a punishment. I don't ever punish anybody whatsoever, right? We just take a look at, there's a reward for doing what you wanted to do, and there's a consequence for choosing to do what OCD wants you to do, right? Because OCD comes with tons of consequences. We're just adding another consequence to choosing to do what OCD wants you to do. So, yeah. People are liking this one. I can see in the comments.
They're like, that's funny.
Yeah.
Because it is.
Mm-hmm. So, you might consider something like that for yourself as well, too. Stacey and I will never look down or punish anyone for having a substance use problem, for having obsessive compulsive disorder. That will never happen. But we will work on finding ways to motivate people to change and be better. That's what we will do. And we will always offer these things. None of these are mandatory, but when somebody agrees to it, then I stick to it. So like that first session when we got to, there were 5 quarters in the jar. And she said, "Do I have to write the check?" I'm like, yeah, we agreed to it. We did say that this was just going to be a part of our therapy. And so we're going to write the check. And I'm not going to, even though, we talked about this, I'm going to remind you, I'm not going to move forward in this session until that check goes in the mail. So she actually had it on her phone and she put it in the envelope. She licked the envelope. She stamped it. She walked outside. She put it in the mailbox, put the flag up and everything. And then it was right around the time actually that the mail person was coming. So I had her sit in a place in her house where she could see out the window. She's like, "Oh no, there's the mail person. She just picked it up. Oh, it's going." But boy, it was great because man, was that just an amazing reminder to her that there are consequences to this life of OCD. There are consequences to this life of substance use issues, right? And sometimes taking one that has no relationship in some ways to it, but is something that you're so passionate about, really might be. You might even say this, for every 5 hand washes that you do above the number that you agree to, you have to wear your least favorite team's jersey or something like that, So if you're a Bears fan.
Actually, I've done that one. I have been in a Redskins jersey.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes, that one was a consequence for me, actually. So yeah, that one's been pulled on me. I've lived that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am not a Redskins fan.
Mario says, "Do you agree that we need to know how many times or how long we need to wash our hands before setting a goal and do our P for contamination OCD?" What we need to know is what the baseline level is that you're doing now. And then we have to agree on what is a good amount that we will decide to decrease that number by. That's what we need to know, right? Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And how can we really get you there in a realistic way, with every week seeing a decrease in what you did from the week before?
Right.
That's what we want.
You don't have to jump off the cliff, but
No.
you do want to make progress.
Yeah. Well, Stacey, everyone's had another hour of their life with us. Give them a little wrap up, please.
All right. Well, again, we've got the website, www.ocdsud.com. Go check it out. We try to add resources. We'll probably have some resources after this next conference at the IOCDF. We'll see what we can put up that we share at the conference and add it to the website. And again, check with the International OCD Foundation if you're interested in going to this year's conference. Patrick and I will be presenting on OCD with some of our colleagues and friends. So
come say hi to us.
Yeah, come say hi to us. Just remember, one of us is legally blind. So if you're waving to me.
Yeah, but you're going to have your cool contraption on now, so you'll be able to see it.
Well, maybe yeah. Well, we'll see.
Okay.
Literally, we'll see. But don't take it to heart. You got to come up and let me know that you exist in the world.
And a reminder, NoCD, check us out at nocd.com, nocd.com. And we do online teletherapy for the treatment of OCD and related conditions. We work here in the US and Canada and Australia and the UK as well. And we take insurance, which is also very helpful for people in the US as well, too. So please check us out at nocd.com, nocd.com. Stacey, I'll see you in a month. Thank you for being here. And thanks, everyone, for being here with us tonight. We really appreciate it. It's been a blast. Have a good week, everyone.